Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Alison, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly forecast for May 20th to 27th, 2024. And this episode is called The Power of Now. This week's highlights, we have the sun entering Gemini today on May 20th, the sign of the twins. On Thursday, May 23rd, we have a full moon in Sagittarius alongside a beautiful Jupiter-Venus conjunction in Taurus. On Saturday, May 25th, Jupiter is moving from Taurus into Gemini for the entire next year. And in human design and the I Ching, all week the sun is transiting through gate 20, which is the gate of the now. So this week's themes are the power of now, expansion of beauty and what you value with that Jupiter conjunct Venus in Taurus transit happening. It's also the beginning of a year of childlike curiosity with Jupiter transiting into Gemini. Another theme is, won't you be my neighbor? For some reason, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood has been kind of popping into my head, thinking about Gemini being the sign of neighbors and siblings and close relationships and chattiness and gossip and just all of the things that are happening on the neighborly level. And then finally, the final theme is contemplation and meditation on the moment. So within our place in the wheel of the year, as we walk this wheel, we are in the medicine wheel direction east and coming into the south. We're in the Wuxing cycle, the Taoist 5-element cycle of fire, coming out of wood into fire. We're in the pagan season of Beltane, the zodiac season of Gemini from May 20th until June 20th. The moon phase this week is the full moon in Sagittarius. And in the I Ching, it's the I Ching hexagram and human design gate 20 from May 20th to 27th. And that is wind over earth or contemplation, the gate of the now. So we'll start out talking a bit about Gemini season. It's a big transition from Taurus into Gemini. Every month I write an overview and record a guided meditation for the zodiac season ahead for the collaborative astrology zine called Astrum Opus. It's a really great group of astrologers who are all over the world, and we publish a lot of content, and I joined them last year, and so I'm writing just the season ahead kind of through the lens of embodiment, through my astrosomatics lens, and also through the lens of the life cycle, the zodiac in terms of the life cycle. So as we start this week diving into Gemini season, I'm going to read a few reflections from that article because it's fresh off the presses, and I'll send it out to my subscribers at astrosomatics.substack.com as well. So you can have that whole article and the guided meditation as well. But I hope Taurus season brought a good dose of grounding and centering and pleasure for you after the wild ride of Aries season and the eclipses. We're now entering the breezy airs of Gemini season, where the sun will dance with the bees and the butterflies from May 20th until the summer solstice arrives on June 20th. After the energetic innocence and rapid growth of the sign of the Ram, followed by the sensual explorations and introspective determination of the stable Bull, we're arriving at a time of the year when the twins have much to talk about, cross-pollinating their independent worlds to create a spirited new dynamic. Gemini season is a time of new beginnings, exploration, and communication, and it's made even more expansive by the transit of Jupiter into Gemini on May 25th. Quite a change after a whole year blowing up the house of your chart that contains Taurus. When I think of Gemini season, all I can see in my mind's eye are bees, sphinx moths, butterflies, and hummingbirds. The abundant first flush of Taurus season's flowers is already beginning to fade. All the lilacs in my front yard and all over town are now kind of turning brown, and they were so vibrant. But the pollinators are swarming around my garden right now, eager to drink the sweet nectar of that first flush of flowers. This buzzing cacophony is a perfect scene to ring in the season of the twins, the chatty, social, mercurial sign that takes us from spring into summer. We've spent long enough soaking up the heat of the earth. It's now time to listen to the folky words of the freewheelin' Bob Dylan, whose Sun, Venus, and Mercury are all in Gemini. The answer, my friend, is blowin' in the wind. The answer is blowin' in the wind. Such a Gemini song. And I didn't know that Bob Dylan had so many Gemini placements. But oftentimes when I'm reminded of someone whose lyrics remind me of a certain sign, I look them up. And lo and behold, they have a lot of concentration of energy in that sign themselves. So blowin' in the wind, Gemini Bob Dylan. If we look at Gemini from the context of medical astrology and embodied astrology, Gemini is associated with many of the body parts that come in twos. So our shoulders, arms, and hands are ruled by Gemini, which align with the parts of the body used for expressive communication, nonverbal communication. And I think of Gemini and I think of big bear hugs and also constant multitasking for this very busy sign of the zodiac and very friendly overall sign of the zodiac. So the hands, shoulders, and arms really do convey a lot of kind of Gemini energy as well. As an air sign, Gemini is associated with the lungs, which is another twin part of the body. And it's also associated with the bronchial tubes, capillaries, and respiratory system. This connection can be seen in the way people with strong Gemini placements are often described as being robust in their communication, their intellectual pursuits, and their social interaction. These traits can be linked to our respiratory system's role in exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide through breathing, bringing the outer world to the inner and back again. As a breathwork facilitator myself, I really loved thinking about this analogy between Gemini and the breath, and the lungs and the arms, and just it feels so Gemini to me. Gemini is ruled by the god and planet Mercury, aka Hermes, in the Greek pantheon. Mercury is known as the messenger of the gods, and he was responsible for conveying divine dispatches between Mount Olympus and the underworld. Communication, commerce, trade, and exchange are beautiful analogies to the action of the human respiratory system. So, yeah, if you think about our breath, what we're doing is we're trading oxygen for carbon dioxide, and that whole exchange is so mercurial in its mechanism. Mercury is often shown with wings on his feet and on his hat or on his head, and this is super evocative of the season's pollinating birds, bees, and butterflies as well. So after I wrote this article for Astrum Opus about Gemini, and I was thinking so much about pollinators, I had left my front door open without a screen. I put a screen on for the summer, but we hadn't put the screen up yet because it's been a bit chilly. And so left this door open for the dogs to go in and out. And as I was on Discord, on Midjourney, AI app, putting together kind of some inspiration for an image related to Mercury and pollinators, something I'd love to paint, but I didn't really have the time. And so I looked into the AI assistants to just see what was in my mind's eye of Mercury surrounded by pollinators. And I came up with this beautiful image, a few beautiful images of Mercury or Hermes with the wings on his feet and head, and, this beautiful Greek person that was surrounded by butterflies and bees and moths. And as I was finishing that up and downloading it, my partner came running into the room and said, oh, there's something in the kitchen. And it was a baby hummingbird that had flown in. And I have an internal hydroponic garden in my kitchen. And the hummingbird was coming in to pollinate some of the flowers and plants that were on that. So we were able to get it outside, and the little bird was stunned for just a moment and just kind of sat there. My daughter was peeking at it, just wondering if she was injured, but eventually took off in flight, and kind of a helicopter just hovered up and flew away. And so it was really amazing to see that, as I had so much focus on this idea of this mercurial energy being related to bees and butterflies and pollinators. If we look at the wheel of the zodiac as a corollary for the human life cycle, Gemini is related to childhood and early adolescence. So last season, for Taurus season, we talked a bit about how Taurians are like toddlers and Aries are like infants in this way, in this flow. And so Gemini gets into childhood and early adolescence. This is the season in our lives when we are consumed with a never-ending supply of questions and curiosities for our caregivers and our peers, and we're learning the ins and outs of social interactions with our classmates. My daughter has definitely transitioned from toddler into that real childhood. I went to a little tea party that her class had at her preschool, her final year of preschool, before starting kindergarten. And yeah, just listening to the chatter and all the conversation between all of the little ones, 4 and 5-year-olds, was just super sweet and very Gemini. So after crawling on the earth and learning from our senses in the phase of Taurian toddlerhood, the Gemini phase of life erupts in a whirlwind of words and emotions and relationships. Geminis, like school-age children and young adolescents, are driven with a need for social interactions. I have 2 play dates lined up after school today. And new context, conversation, questions about why. They have an insatiable mercurial desire to connect the dots between their home lives and the larger worlds around them. Again, this reminds us of the respiratory inhale and exhale, bringing our inner worlds and outer worlds together through the airways. Gemini is the natural ruler of the 3rd house, and the archetype of the twins is most concerned with the qualities of this house. The 3rd house is kind of like the first ring of society out from the self. The won't you be my neighbor, like I mentioned, siblings, neighbors, and communication with those who are in local proximity to us. Gemini season is a good time to look at planets and points in your 3rd house and consider how your chats with neighbors help you learn about both yourself and about the larger world beyond your home base. So that's a little foray into how I view Gemini season. I've tended to really start to look at zodiac signs through an kind of ecological lens of the life cycle of plants and animals, the life cycle of humans, and kind of like a stages of developmental life. And I think, and also through the body, kind of the corollaries through the body. It's a beautiful thing to be able to see analogies in our lived experience for these mythological and archetypical renditions of the stars and the constellations. So it's definitely a poetic way of seeing it, and definitely I bring my own slant to it. So I'd be curious to hear how you relate to that, and if you have any Gemini placements or Gemini people in your life, if you relate to any of that body analogies or life cycle analogies when it comes to Gemini. So this week, we also have a Sagittarius full moon. Sagittarius is the opposite sign from Gemini across the wheel. And so every Gemini season includes a full moon in the opposite side of the sky. And this year's Sagittarius full moon is happening just a few days after the sun moves into the sign of the twins. And every full moon highlights the polarities of the opposite sign, but each polarity is encompassed within a unifying theme. And the unifying theme for the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius, the Centaur Archer, is knowledge and communication. So this full moon is a culmination point of all of our collective learnings, and the light of the sun is shining on our embodied inner knowing. The moon in Sagittarius represents knowledge and communication expressed through long voyages to far-off lands, gurus, doctrines, philosophy, formal higher education, and spirituality. By contrast, the sun in Gemini represents knowledge and communication expressed through chatting and exchanging ideas with those who are close to you. Like I mentioned, the siblings, the neighbors, the marketplaces, the local community. And so you can tell they're both Sagittarius and Gemini are about communication and wisdom and knowledge, but the ways in which they convey this information and achieve this knowledge and the ways that they communicate are quite different from each other. So each polarity on the wheel has that kind of similar themes to what the goals are, what the meat of the purpose of that sign is, but it's done in a different way. The conscious sun this week in the sign of local knowledge is shining her light on the subconscious moon in the sign of universal knowledge. So that's the polarity, local versus universal. The full moon acts as a mirror, and during Gemini season, the moon is an embodied reflection of this idea that there is a unifying and universal truth within each of our location-based and personal truths. The Sagittarius full moon shines with the brilliance of interconnected, universal knowledge that has been distilled like a fine wine through space and time. The archetype of Sagittarius, where this moon is, has a shadow of being dogmatic and righteous because they're prone to think that in their questing they have found the ultimate truth. But as long as they stay off their high horse and shy away from ultimatums and recognize, like Gemini, that there is always another opinion out there, their deep synthesis of varying personal beliefs can be truly enlightening. This exceptional beauty of Sagittarius is the bravery of the archer to transcend their immediate surroundings and synthesize information from the past and the present, the east and the west, the mind and the body. There's a deep curiosity in both Gemini and Sagittarius, different ways of knowing from opposite sides of the ecliptic. So I have a stellium in Sagittarius. I have a lot of outer planets, Uranus and Jupiter and Neptune in Sagittarius, as well as my south node. And on the opposite side of the sky, my north node is in Gemini. And so I find that this axis, it's my nodal axis, nodes of the moon. And so I find this to be very personal. A lot of what I'm saying right now about this kind of different ways of knowledge and communication. One from the top of the mountain, like the guru kind of doctrine, and from seeking out wisdom far and wide, and one from gaining knowledge and wisdom through local conversations, I think is just a beautiful polarity to encompass. There's a quote by Carl Sagan that kind of sums this up. It says, "People are not stupid. They believe things for reasons. The last way for skeptics to get the attention of bright, curious, intelligent people is to belittle or condescend or show arrogance towards their beliefs." And so, yeah, that really sums up to me the kind of like local wisdoms that are everywhere, and how we can universalize them into, greater wisdoms, but how oftentimes the local wisdoms, the personal stories, are where the greatest stores of wisdom are kept. When we look at the rulers of this Gemini-Sagittarius full moon axis, we're coming back again to Jupiter. I've mentioned Jupiter a few times already in this episode because Jupiter is doing a lot this week with meeting up with Venus in Taurus right before moving into the whole new sign of Gemini. So Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the swift messenger between worlds, the god of commerce, trade, transportation, and tricksters. All of the things that when you hear of the Mercury retrograde is here, those are the things that are affected. Mercury is a guardian of the crossroads between the underworld and above, and Mercury controls the movement of words, goods, ideas, and people, and links the divine and the mundane. So Gemini season is all about the linking of ideas, movement, and socializing. Sagittarius, on the other hand, where the moon is ruled by Jupiter, who is Zeus in Greek mythology. This is the great father of the sky, the commander of lightning and thunder, the overseer from the backs of eagles. Jupiter also happens to be Mercury's father. And Mercury's mother, as an aside, is the earth and fertility goddess Maya, for whom the month of May is named. And here we are in May. Fascinating. Jupiter does not travel between worlds, but rather sees from above, bringing light and controlling the weather. Jupiter, as the ruler of this Sagittarius full moon this week, is currently finishing up his time in Taurus and will be moving into Gemini on Saturday, where he'll be staying for the next year until June 2025. So before he makes this move into the sign of the twins, Jupiter will conjunct Venus, which makes this full moon, it's on the day of the full moon, and so that makes this full moon feel kind of extra luxurious and Venusian. In Taurus, Jupiter expands and gives benevolence to themes of stability and earthiness and sensuality. And coming into conjunction with Venus, who's the ruler of Taurus, Jupiter is expanding that grounded and sensual feeling, giving us permission to find luck and abundance, perhaps, in the nourishment of our senses. And a lot of people say that Jupiter conjuncts the sun, which happened last week, and Jupiter conjunct Venus are like these lucky days of the year. And I don't know if I believe that a single day is like universally the luckiest day, but there is quite a potent energy with both the full moon happening on this Taurus-Gemini axis and with the ruler being Jupiter, and then also Venus coming into conjunction with Jupiter, Venus being the ruler of Taurus. So there's a lot of kind of beautiful interplay between the planetary archetypes right now as far as an expansion, like a making bigger of the Taurian themes that we've been experiencing. So on the day of this Jupiter-Venus conjunction at the last degree of Taurus, and on the day of the Sagittarius moon within Gemini season, we can think about our values a lot. Taurus is a ruler of values, and with Gemini and Sagittarius being on this axis of knowledge and wisdom, that has a lot to do with how we form our values. And within the body, Sagittarius is ruled by the lower half of the body, which includes the hips, thighs, legs, lower back, pelvis, liver, pituitary gland, and sciatic nerve. So that's kind of in comparison to the Gemini shoulders, lungs, arms. So on the Sagittarius moon on Thursday, take some time to ground down into your legs and into the earth as you bear witness to your inner Jupiterian truths and your values that are coming to the surface during this Jupiter-Venus conjunction. This lunation is a great opportunity to tap into that universal truth within yourself, within Gemini season, when Gemini season can often feel, mercurial, buzzy, kind of flighty and heady. The legs and the lower body grounding us down for the day of this full moon is a nice reflection from that energy for this week. Take some time to listen to your inner knowing as something that's been distilled and synthesized over your life and over the lives of your parents and your grandparents and your ancestors. Full moons are times of release. So on the day of this full moon, it's okay to release the need to add any more information, data, or other opinions to what's already deep inside you as far as your personal truth. And then as Gemini season progresses, there will be plenty of opportunities to chat and talk and learn new things from lots of people who are coming out into these warmer summer months. In the I Ching and human design part of the wheel, all of this Gemini Sagittarius action is happening in the gate of the now, which is gate 20, and it's the gate of contemplation, meditation, and viewing. So it feels right on theme with this full Sagittarius moon and Gemini season's axis of knowledge. For the entire week, the sun will be in this gate 20, and it's a really powerful gate. It's the gate of being in the present moment. And the trigrams that make up hexagram 20 are wind and earth in the configuration of wind over earth. This hexagram represents a period of being internally receptive, like the earth, and the external forces that are coming in. The wind is kind of light and easy, yet persistent and unwavering types of energy. So in the I Ching, there's a lot of visual metaphor and visual scenes almost to these hexagram depictions. And so you can think about the wind blowing over the earth, going far and wide, kind of like that Sagittarius energy. And also I think of the wind, and breeziness is another thing that's akin to pollination that's happening during this season. So it's this breezy wind of Gemini season and these far-reaching wind of the Sagittarius new moon. When the wind blows over the earth, it goes far and wide, and the grass bends to its power. That was a quote from the I Ching. It's known as Quan in Chinese. A slight variation of tonal stress to that word gives the Chinese name a double meaning. It means contemplation and also being seen in the sense of being an example to others. The wise king watches the wind breeze above the earth, moving quickly and seeing all perspectives. Another word for this hexagram, or another name, is called viewing. And with that, we rise up from the earth alone and watch the skies, the air of Gemini season, the big picture, and let everything come into view. We watch for signs, patterns, details, and landmarks in our surroundings. We examine, contemplate, and find the deeper meaning in all of the things that are blowing in the wind. In meditation, the whole world that is real and true in the current moment comes into view. So a little bit of I Ching related poetry to this. I can see it very clearly now, just kind of being a king, being a master of our own worlds, having that inner wisdom on this Sagittarius full moon, and also the wisdom of kind of all of the different breezes coming from all of the different parts of the world that is Gemini influenced. In human design, gate 20 is called the gate of the now, like I mentioned, and people with gate 20 activated in their chart often have a strong connection to the present moment and are able to live in the now. They're naturally present and aware and are able to respond to situations as they arise. On the opposite side of the wheel from gate 20, where the full moon in Sagittarius will sit this week, is gate 34. The gate of power, force, or sovereignty. So gate 34 is where the Sagittarius full moon is, and gate 20 is where the sun in Gemini is this week. And so we have this contrast and polarity between the now and power. And in the human design body graph, which we haven't talked about too much on this podcast yet, as we're really just looking at the gates as far as their ordering in the wheel of the year. But each of these gates along the wheel of the year is also in human design attributed to a part of the body, one of the 9 energy centers of the bodies that correspond to the chakras in the Hindu Brahmin chakra system. And so the body graph has different parts where like these different gates come together. The different energy centers meet up and are thus activated by these energy centers coming together, kind of highlighted in our body. And gate 34, the Sagittarius gate of power, and gate 20, this Gemini gate of the now, come together to form a channel. They connect in the body between the sacral chakra, the powerhouse energy center, and the throat. 20, the gate of the now, is in the throat, and 34 is in the sacral part of the body. And so this channel is the only manifesting generator channel in the body graph. And if you don't know what that means, totally free to ignore it. But for those of you who have a little bit of human design knowledge, manifesting generators are like the type of people who can manifest and have the energy to sustain and generate what it is that they manifest. And this channel between these two gates where the sun and moon are this week are the only gates, the only channel that is a true manifesting generator channel. And so it's called the gate, this channel is called the gate of charisma, channel of charisma. And so this week's opposition and polarity between the sun's conscious living in the moment of the now as being reflected back by the moon in the gate of power and force. And so it indicates this full moon will be filled with initiatory action. So although the sun is transiting through a gate of meditation and contemplation and the now, the stillness of the now. It's met with this full moon energy that is kind of taking what we are feeling in the current moment of the now and adding a certain amount of like sovereign force and initiation to that by being in the now, being in the moment and seeing those breezes coming from all directions, being in that meditative state. We're able to see what really needs to be done. And so there's definitely a lot of action and a lot of like expansion on this full moon this Thursday. And since it's the same day that Venus is meeting up with Jupiter, I'd say that there are definite themes of motivation and beauty and value and truth when it comes to what we're being motivated by. This quality of being in the present moment combined with power and sovereign force can be highly energetic and action-oriented. So put a little star on your calendar for Thursday of this week, from the 23rd for this full moon and this Jupiter-Venus conjunction, because I think it'll pack quite a punch in one way or another. For Gate 20, to go a little bit deeper into the Gate of the Now, the human design expert Christy Inge, who I read a lot of her blog, she calls Gate 20 the voice of alchemy, and that's the energy to be present and speak the truth in the now. The founders of Unlock Your Design, who run an awesome human design and astrology project that I love called the 64 Doors, they call Gate 20 the tranquil as an archetype. So it's all about one who is absorbed in the present moment, where he trusts the divine order of everything. In the reality of the present, everything that isn't relevant in the moment disappears. Like the mutable air sign of Gemini, the gate of the now is the gate of contemplation, gaining their wisdom from not getting stuck in any one way of being, allowing a wide variety of perspectives and voices in. They don't go out chasing the moment. They simply stop, take deep breaths, and allow the moment to come to them. I remember reading the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle back in high school, and I still remember how much it influenced my views and my relationship with time at that point in my life. I don't know if you've read it, but it was a very, very popular book at one point in time, and really just an argument for the fact that the present moment is the only moment that truly exists, and that living within the present is the key to happiness and fulfillment. At one point in my life, later on in my 20s, I kind of hated the book because a guy I dated in my mid-20s was always carrying it around and quoting it, and I was very in my head. And so I kind of thought by doing that, he was always trying to stop us from talking about bigger picture stuff and return just to this moment. But when I look back on my early 20s, I definitely did not know everything. And I think my Sagittarius stellium was speaking a little too loudly at that point. And I've learned over these years that being in the now and being in the present moment, just taking the future away and taking the past away and just breathing into the now is such a good place, especially in relationship, to get to be able to make any kind of headway on issues that you're having. So in retrospect, I definitely appreciate that book being the Bible for a little while. More recently, last year, I did an 8-month program to become certified in facilitating trauma-informed breathwork practices. And a part of this course curriculum that was through integrative breath, it was to read and follow the prompts in the book called The Presence Process by Michael Brown. And this is another book that's kind of akin to The Power of Now, but with a lot more of a process-oriented approach as far as how to not just think about being in the now, but what we can do as a practice over time to build our embodied understanding of returning to the present moment. And the presence process follows the same principles of Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now, but it's more of like a manual, how-to manual to kind of look into your emotional past in the present moment so that you can stop reacting to it. And it gives a 15-minute guided breath practice every day, and also involves a combination of meditation and journaling and self-reflection, which help us access and release subconscious and the subconscious emotions that we're carrying around. And I did this book along with about 20 other people in my cohort for this breathwork certification program. And it was really beautiful to be able to reflect on it and to come and do longer breathwork practices with a group of people, knowing that everyone was on the daily coming back to their breath for these 15 minutes and working through this process. So it definitely changed my life doing that practice of presence process for 15 minutes every day for 8 months. So I definitely recommend Michael Brown's book to ground into the present moment, especially as we're entering this upcoming buzzy month of Gemini and this upcoming year of buzzy Gemini energy, with Jupiter transiting into energy. And this energy is fun and beautiful and can also make us feel more distracted and flighty and thinking about things in the past or the future. So coming back to the now is a great gate to enter Gemini season with, as a reminder to be in the moment. The book begins with a quote by Rumi, and it says, "This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and attend them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." Rumi. And I love this poem by Rumi. I think that this book, being in the present moment and practicing this presence process for those 8 months, really allowed acceptance. The whole critical point of this book is to allow acceptance of emotions, which he calls energy in motion. And emotions in that way need to move through. They need to be able to be seen. They need to be able to be accepted in order for us to transform past them so that we can be further and further in the present moment rather than flashing back to a memory or a time of something that had happened in our past based on something that's currently happening now, but to really detach that association by accepting the emotions as they come up in the way that the Rumi poem talks to us about the guests inside us, where we can accept them without judgment and without resistance, and how they can help us get to this place of calm presence through that process of acceptance. So, definitely recommend the presence process if you're looking to get back more in the present moment. So with that, I invite you to return to the present moment. Thank you for listening to this podcast once again. I always think it's going to be a bit shorter than it is, but it always ends up around 45 minutes. Some might be shorter in the future and some might be longer, but I appreciate you taking the 45 minutes of your time to sit in this present moment and ponder the frequencies of the season where the sun is transiting through, changing our relationships with the land and with the sky and with ourselves as the weather gets warmer. We have a lot to look forward to in Gemini season, with Jupiter also coming along with the sun there on Saturday and through the next year. So I hope that this Gemini season is a wonderful cross-pollinating time for you, where you can embody these moths and butterflies and hummingbirds and just get all of the juicy nectar, help these flowers talk to each other. And also remember that there's a lot still happening in Taurus, so take time for yourself to revel in that sensuality and in the present moment, as we talked about. So again, I appreciate your listening every week, your comments and your feedback about how this week's energies are showing up for you. And it's really helping me over the course of this year put together a more structured program for next year, where I hope to have a workbook and a book that goes along with this podcast, where we can walk the wheel together with a little of some guided questions and guided meditations and different ways to really ground in our bodies into these energies of the wheel of the year. But for now, you can find me on Instagram at Cycles of Time Podcast, or on Facebook in the Cycles of Time Facebook group. You can just search for that. And again, if you're listening to this and would like to receive this as a transcript plus the audio every Monday in your inbox, you can subscribe for free at astrosomatics.substack.com. And today I'm going to leave you with a 5-minute guided meditation for Gemini season from my article for Astrum Opus. So I appreciate you listening. If you don't have 5 more minutes for a Gemini season guided meditation, you can say goodbye now, but otherwise just relax into this meditation and let it flow over you. And have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.